Hello and welcome to a brand new Corn Nation Overreaction live on YouTube, Facebook, and of course, X. I'm your host, Greg Mahochko. Joining me is not just my co-host, longtime broadcast buddy and fellow Husker fan and friend, Haas Reuter.
Hello.
But becoming a regular now, bumping up in the world, Big Game Jake. We're gonna have to change his name from Big Game Jake to Every Game Jake. What's up, Jake? How you doing, man?
Doing well. Feeling good after a win, so moved 4-1.
As Kevin Malone said, it just feels good to win one.
It just feels good to win one.
When Nebraska did, I guess we just need to jump right into it. First road game, first morning kickoff. Went to Ross-Ade Stadium, West Lafayette, Indiana. Took on the Purdue Boilermakers. I'm going to say it this way. Escaped. They escaped with a 28-10 win. Because the first half, Husker fans on all channels, all social media, the Slack chat room, wherever you could find a Husker fan, we were beside ourselves. If you had hair, you were pulling it out. They went into the locker room no further along, nothing at all being decided. It was 0-0 at halftime. The commentators made a point to say, it's the first time that Purdue and an opponent has been, scoreless at halftime since 1993 against Notre Dame. There's only one person that I can ask this question to, Haas. When is the last time Nebraska and an opponent entered halftime scoreless?
That is a great question. It was one that I was thinking of as well yesterday. And the only time that I can think of Nebraska being scoreless at halftime would be recently, like the 2017 Ohio State game or 2004 Oklahoma, games that we were lucky to not get shut out in. But as far as both teams being scoreless, I have no idea. That's like one of those things where you need like a sports almanac to consult with.
Well, you understand that usually you're my sports almanac, so I had to ask you. But let's dive into it. First of all, yes, we are live, and a lot of the filthy animals are here tonight. Aaron Keene was here early at 8:07, chiming in. Living in Omaha, David Matney, the official realtor of the Five Heart Podcast, was here early. We see Justin Raji's here. Hello, good people.
Hi, Justin.
Let's de-emphasize that good. Hello, people. I don't know about the good. Kidding. TSD's here. Nation of Corn. Minnie's in the chat tonight, to where she started. By the way, let's not. It's good to remind her of her humble beginnings. Just couldn't resist. Blake Davis is in. First game I've been to since 2011. Such a great time. We're going to talk about that crowd as we get going. Conservative Huskers here. Sup Huskers, TSD, Justin. Fred in the house. Good to see you, Fred. Paul Dalen is here. And it wouldn't be a Paul Dalen drop-in. Loved the welcome home that Allie Batenhorst got tonight. Still a volleyball school. Yes, Nebraska volleyball. They did sweep USC, ruined Allie's homecoming, so to speak, but she did get a nice reception. That'd be a great conversation for either John on Monday Night Therapy or the Five Heart Podcast later this week. We'll leave that one to the experts, but definitely check out cornnation.com, because the Beth's going to have one of the greatest write-ups of all time, as she always does. Highlander Gunn is here. Children of the Corn. Stephanie Jackson is here tonight. Says my prediction was a win by 19, so she was close. That is
damn close.
I don't know if you put that on record anywhere, Stephanie, that we can verify. But regardless, that's awesome. Charles Hewlett's here. Glad we got a dub. Don't have hair on my head. I have eyebrows. And Josh had to be reminded that it's live. And Minnie, on a Sunday night, gifting 10 Corn Nation memberships. So if you are one of those, welcome. And let's see, look at Highlander Gun go. Or look at Minnie go, says Highlander Gun. And Katie Horde is in the comments tonight, watching this with my best friends, I don't know who that would be. I don't know.
Yeah, I think she knows a couple of the people on this show. Not quite.
I think she knows a few people.
Name kind of rings a bell.
Yeah. Oh, good. Glad to have you here, Katie. Fred says many giving out memberships like the Big Ten refs give out flags. Yeah, we will. Let's see. As a former kicker, let's get right to it. Do you have any eligibility, Aaron? That'd be the question.
Should we just start with the obvious that it's the elephant in the room about Ed Foley? Is that a good jumping off point?
Well, I know it's not a good sign when you said to me he needs to go.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, it's one of those things where you're, as a special teams coordinator, you're really responsible for about 6 specialists, 6 positions. You got long snapper, you got the holder, you got the kicker, punter, and then a return man. And so when you're handling those responsibilities, you are responsible for recruiting 6 positions. And we just can't seem to get issues fixed. You know, like they knew about the issue with long snapping going back into the spring, and it was never fixed. There was the long snapper at Minnesota, forget his name right now, but he visited last year. He was the best long snapper in the country. Wanted a Nebraska offer. Ed Foley said, we're set. So at some point, it's like, you got to get these issues fixed. You can't just continue trotting out the same things and, you know, expecting different results. I mean, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results is the definition of insanity. And we're stuck in that life cycle on special teams. Feels like special teams has been stuck in that life cycle since about 2012 at Nebraska. You know, and when you look back on having to just throw somebody out there, Jordan Westerkamp, just to field punts because we couldn't stop dropping punts. And then let's not talk about 450 Bruce Reed, you know, Riley's special teams coach who's knocking down $450 a year for doing nothing. It's kind of like the Office Space thing. What exactly would you say that you do here? So we're at a critical point now with special teams because it's not something that's evidently going to get fixed in season. And even last year when we had really solid snaps, we had leaky kickoff coverage. We gave up a big return to that Smoke Harris from Louisiana Tech. And then Alvano couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. So at some point, it's got to go back to the leadership of that unit.
I feel like John, in his instant reaction yesterday after the game, said that when your punter is your leading tackler on special teams, probably, and I don't know how much of that was being, you know, hyperbolic or facetious, but we do seem to hear Brian Buschini's name quite a bit getting in the mix, Jake, when, you know, he's, I guess, give the young man credit for going out there and putting his body on the line, but we have gunners who are supposed to be able to get down and you know, make a tackle, and he's got to fly in like a torpedo just to knock a guy out of bounds or something. So, worrisome, would you say, Jake?
Yeah, worrisome having no awareness. And one of our gunners ended up 9 yards deep in the end zone on a ball that was a touchback. I forget who it was.
Ramir.
That was Ramir. There you go. It's an Ed Foley problem. I'll also give Brian Buschini credit. He's someone I'm buying stock in right now.
Yeah, he's actually punting really well. Right
he's
now.
punting really well. He had that botched, like, I know it was like a 50-yarder against Illinois that was a botched, you know, the wrong side of the field. Other than that, man, he's punting the ball well. And he's accurate. And, man, he's bouncing back.
You say punting to the wrong side of the field, and I get flashbacks.
PTSD.
Yeah, PTSD.
Yeah. We don't need that.
But yeah, special teams kick and, you know, kick coverage and punt coverage is I think we should be very concerned about that.
You know, I don't want to. I was going to say this, but it's kind of something that's already happened. You know, special teams is going to cost us a game this year. It kind of already did against Illinois, missing the field goal. But
say it, I agree.
I think it's going to cost us in a big spot where, you know, I'll use this as an example. What if it's Ohio State? You score to tie it up or score to take a lead, and then boom, you give up a kick, you know, kick 6 just like that. It's got to be fixed. We use outdated schemes on special teams too. And we have first and second string guys out there. We're putting starters on special teams. It's not just a charity case for walk-on and fifth-year players anymore to, you know, get some playing time. Like, we're putting the best of the best out there. So we have to figure out a way to actually flip the field on special teams and make that third of the game, that phase of the game, have an impact.
I just want you guys to know I'm being mildly, roasted possibly in the comments. You might have to scroll up a little bit to see it. Justin Rogers says, "Are we all in agreement that it's Greg, my fault about a bad long snapper? He never wanted the long snapper mentioned during preseason. Because of that, now we have to, and I guess he ran out of room. Now we have to deal with whatever the funny situation is." Let's see. There was something that he did. Let's see. Brasco Rascal said, I downplayed long snapper all offseason. Minnie says, Raji, are you saying that Nebraska should fire Greg Engling Mahachko? Now, in my defense, I am working on a solution. Now, I need just a minute to make the image happen. So if you guys want to talk about the long snapper, I actually did say on X yesterday during the game is I miss Marco Ortiz.
Yep.
I shouldn't even know the long snapper's name. That's where we're at.
Yeah, Marco Ortiz was automatic last year. There was no worry whatsoever. Everything was every hold, every snap was good. That's the vexing thing about Albano as a kicker, where you have this phenomenal hold against Iowa on a field goal that would have put us up 13-10. It's not that difficult of a field goal, and Albano just absolutely hammers it, puts no English on the football to get it to hook back in. So evidently, they've tried to figure it out with Brett Maher getting involved, but who knows? Maybe it's too early to tell, but I don't feel good about this kicking situation at any point in 2024.
I do. I know we mentioned who was 8-9 yards deep on that punt that should have been downed at the 1 or 2. I think what you guys said was Ramir. I think it was Boodle.
Dwight Boodle,
not DiCaprio TSD. He's here and gone. Is he still in the league?
Ramir fielded a different punt later in the
game.
Yep,
okay.
Sorry. I don't know. He was on the Kansas City Chiefs practice.
That's what I thought.
Last I saw.
Okay. Well, good for him.
But
I feel like it went.
It's always interesting when you lead off with that as a topic on these podcasts.
He's a Charger now.
Took a big L today.
Yep.
Well, I will work on this image. It's taken a minute to populate. But again, we'll put a pin in it because I do have a solution. Might have to wait a few years. I'll show it to you. Anyway, so 0-0 first half, flags aplenty. Matt Rule gets a flag, and he owns it in the post game. He says, somebody's got to fight for Nebraska. I'm going to fight for Nebraska. There was a holding call, I guess he disagreed with. He threw his headset down. The official saw it. He said, somebody, if you watch in real time, he says, I'm in the white. I'm in the zone that I'm allowed to, I guess, stand in and be angry at the officiating. But didn't go his way. The first half didn't go our way. I mean, we just couldn't finish a drive to save our lives. Plenty of opportunities, and the defense was doing its job. We just couldn't close. We couldn't finish. That was a concern. I mean, that's going to be a concern until we start. And I know we started cleaning that up a little bit in the second half. But when we talk about, going up against, we got Rutgers and Indiana, and then I know somewhere there's a bye, and then Ohio State. These are two teams that are going to be ranked. And if we're not finishing our opportunities, Jake, then, shooting ourselves in the foot, and we're not going to be playing the likes of Purdue. We're going to be playing teams that'll make us pay for this ineptitude.
Yeah, we're not going to survive against better teams. Purdue, probably one of the bottom 2 teams in the conference, if not the bottom dweller. So we did see a first ever, I think, in the history of the game, potentially football ever, a pass interference was called when two players didn't even touch each other.
Right.
That's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Again, not to be dramatic, but the officials should be ashamed of themselves. That was embarrassing. And people go, well, they're humans, they make mistakes. Yeah, that's their job, though. We all do our jobs. And if you do your job that poorly, you shouldn't be allowed to do that job. And they're not throwing flags on Purdue. I know, Greg, you asked me a specific question that I kind of
good.
a different way. Ty Robinson is completely hooked, no flag. Referee's looking right at it, nothing. And then Jamal Banks on the holding, I guess, ticky-tacky call on, I think it was a Barney jet sweep. Yeah. I think it was one for big yardage, got called back. And it's just like, we got to be better. And I don't want to be one of these Nebraska fans. Like, the refs it definitely feels like we're getting the raw deal on these calls, on most of them. And I don't know why that is. But anyway, yeah, we kind of did finish that one drive with the offensive PI. I mean, that drive should have been over. That was 7-0.
Yep. That should have been 7-0. And one of the things that frustrates me is we run a lot of those pick plays in situations where we need to get a big first down, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5, those kinds of downs. And it's a great thing because it frees up Ja'Cory Barney in space, but they're going to flag that every single time. And at some point, it's like we need to go away from calling those plays in those situations because it's just inviting trouble in at that point.
Yeah.
And I had some starred comments here. Let's see. So Paul Dalen says, what the fuck is going on with refs this year? It's not just Nebraska. Minnesota got robbed last night.
Big Ten protects their sacred cows.
And that was Minnesota, Michigan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Michigan and Ohio State are always going to get the calls to go their way. I mean, that's a fact of life. But it's a kind of a hazing initiation into the Big Ten with officiating.
We talked about like
upstart. It's always the same thing.
I feel like in various conversations we've talked about, Nebraska having to pay its dues, but I do feel like Hoss kind of piggyback on what you said. If Nebraska was back-to-back-to-back conference champion and national semifinal, whatever, if we rose to that upper tier, kind of go back to what you said about they protect their own sacred pigs. Anyway, thank you. I still feel like we wouldn't have an advantage in some of those situations.
I mean, I do think that the better you are, the more calls you get. It's just human nature to get the benefit of the doubt. The Kansas City Chiefs are the beneficiaries of that all the time. So I think that probably even if Nebraska was a 3-time conference champion, that we probably would have some calls go our way. I think when you're bad and you've been bad for a while, I think there's the human tendency for officiating to pile on.
Well, yeah, and like Purdue, there was a comment like Purdue had like 400 yards and penalties or whatever. It's like, yeah, how many blatant pass interference penalties did they make to prevent big plays that you had to throw a flag on because it was so obvious the flag has to come out?
Yep.
What'd they have? Like 7
pass interference penalties.
Yeah. I mean, and they were blatant, like mugging. These weren't ticky-tacky calls against Purdue.
No.
Yeah.
It goes kind of back on. We talked about this yesterday when we were watching the game. Dylan Raiola throwing those back shoulder throws on the deep balls to give the receiver the opportunity to make a play on the ball and also draw a penalty. In that case, if it's not going to be able to be complete, defender holds up the receiver, you get 15 yards. But at the same time, I think there was a bit of a strategy from Purdue of not wanting to get beat deep, so that they were just doing whatever they could to clutch and grab, especially when they were bringing 5- and 6-man pressures against Raiola, that they needed to hold on in coverage just a little bit longer. So they were resorting to everything to try to slow down our receivers.
Yep.
I love this comment by Redwine65. I think, we talk a lot about, running up the score. And Hoss, you've said on record countless times, if you don't like it, stop them. And Redwine says, in regards to officiating, that's why we need a couple extra scores to take care of the refs. You know, we close out. Yeah, exactly right. Close out some of those first half drives, then, you know, we're bitching about the officiating a lot less. All right, so I got the picture ready. Again, this was taken tonight on the way to put my twins to bed, but one of my twins, Rob, I think he's got the long snapper stance. He's ready to go.
All right, get him to Lincoln. Call Ed Foley.
Look, he's got his eyes back. He's aware. He did that. I said, "Don't move." What? And I said, I know some people who are going to appreciate this. So, yeah. So anyway, and don't worry, I put clothes on the child before bedtime. It's fine. But yeah, long, wide stance, good base, and he's a stocky kid, so I wouldn't put it past him to figure out a way to.
Another Marco Ortiz.
Yeah, we'll call him Robert Mahachka, though.
Yeah, there you go.
What?
Rob for short.
I've asked him. I mean, granted, he's 3. We're like, do you want us to call you Rob or Robert? Robert. And with his twin, who's the only thing they have in common is the day they were born because they're fraternal twins. But Matthew wants to be called Matthew. He doesn't want to be called Matt. So, all right.
Very prim and proper.
So, kids don't need clothes, says Pitt Snipe Husker. Fred says looks more alert than D1 long snappers. Highlander says, there you go, Minnie, your long snapper in training. So, yeah, that's exactly why I shared that picture. So, bring us some hope. Now, again, 15 plus years in the future, by the time he gets on campus, wants to put on some functional weight, hit that nutrition table. Yeah. Whatever gets him on the team and me more games in Memorial Stadium. Right, guys? All right. Let us look at this. Look, you know it's not a great outing when the box score has scoring summary, no data first quarter, no data second quarter. We actually trailed in this game for about 4 minutes after they kicked a field goal on, I believe, their second half possession. And then we were able to go down in 2 minutes and 55 seconds. Dylan Raiola found Jamal Banks for a 6-yard touchdown, and Nebraska was running from there. I really thought, guys, tell me your I don't know, emphasis, but I really thought that we were going to keep them out of the end zone. Didn't happen as we let up that late touchdown, but we put up 28 unanswered points and 14 of them in 1 minute, and really helped to. I mean, when they come back from a commercial break and you can hear the Husker power chants at a visit, regardless of everything that happened in the first half, you hear that Husker power chant. I mean, fans were sticking around. The second half, they got into it. Somebody in the comments said we went from being a first half team against Illinois to a second half team against Purdue. We had one really bad set of 4 quarters. The second half of Illinois, let's put the overtime aside, and the first half of Purdue. But we found ourselves. Like, I was optimistic coming out of the locker room.
The vibes around here weren't super optimistic, to be honest with you. The thing, we haven't put together really a complete game all year to this point. It's one of those weird games where when you look at the stat line, if you didn't see the final score, you would have thought the game should have been about 42-10. And it was 28-10, and the reality is it really didn't feel like it felt closer than that. And one thing that's sticking out to me right now is, I don't know if Husker, if you guys agree or chat, but the tackling has been pretty poor the last 2 games. Honestly,
leaky.
Very leaky, and a lot of yards after contact. So outside of Bear and Bullock.
Yeah, those two, I thought Bullock and Sierra Wright were the only ones that played worth a damn against Illinois. And Bear is always solid for the most part. You saw those guys really take the lead against Purdue and play phenomenal games in the first half as well as in the second half. In terms of the defense as well, I want to make a mention. Nash Hutmacher's gone on the milk carton.
Haven't seen me lately.
Nose guard is meant to take up blocks, occupy space. But when you look at what Ty Robinson's doing, splitting double teams, still being aggressive, being violent, violently fighting the offensive line, that's what Nash should be able to do. And that's what he showed, especially down the stretch last year in the month of November, and what he showed against Colorado. So there's just little pieces of this defense that they still haven't put together their best game of the year. Colorado was a great performance. This was a great bounce back performance after what Illinois did to us. But we really have yet to see us be capable of what we did last year.
What do you guys think about this take by Aaron Rostovsky? It's not a tackling problem. It's being in the wrong spot a little too often for a veteran defense. Have they been out of position? Have they been caught out of position?
I mean, a little bit with that transition to quarters coverage. We saw that against Illinois. Guys didn't know where their run fits were. A lot of times guys were too busy, not passing off receivers in the zone and, on an RPO with the run action of the play. They're not filling their gaps. They didn't know where their anchor points really were. So can you pull that up one more time?
Yep. Sorry.
Like being in the wrong spot, it all starts with, knowing what your landmarks are before the play. What are your anchor points? Who's your force player? So I wish I had something to illustrate this a little bit better with to give everybody kind of a visual view. But if you're in quarters like we were against Illinois, we're playing easy force. So our ends are the force player. So, both ends on the box, against the offensive line, tackle to tackle, those guys are either leveraging runs to the outside, trying to spill something inside to out, or they're trying to force something outside back in for whoever is filling. So when you're playing easy force like that, your overhang players, slot defenders, outside linebackers, nickels, whatever personnel you're in, it'll differ, who that overhang player is. Last year, we just had those guys fit off of the D end. We were able to turn guys like Prince Will and Cameron Lenhart loose as true freshmen, and just say, hey, go make a play. We'll make you right in the back end, which is easy to do, making them right no matter what they choose to do, because we are such a man coverage heavy team. So now this year with this transition to more of a quarters-based scheme, what Iowa does, what the Buffalo Bills do, what you're looking at is those ends are the primary force, and we're not really able with our overhang players to fit off those guys because they're being asked to defend the slots in the RPO and quick passing game.
Aaron says Nash was getting triple teamed on a few shots where they showed the play from behind the QB. I mean, is it I don't know. I mean, we talked about how effective he was against Colorado. And you're right, Ty Robinson's getting through double teams. Someone made the comment here, Gargamel said Nash is 20 pounds lighter than last year. We talked about that at the end of, football heading into wrestling. Is that should have made him quicker. But how did the way he –
when you're playing nose guard, if you don't have 20 extra pounds to drop your anchor against a double team, you're going to have some problems.
So what you're saying is he needs to go back to having the 2 breakfasts or whatever they talked about in one of those chasing threes, right?
7, 8 eggs, whatever it was.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was cutting down the number of eggs. That's what it was. Anyway, I want to say, let's see. Joe Folan on Facebook with us tonight says, this team's fun to watch, though. Doesn't matter if we win by 1 or 100. A win is a win. I agree. And at times, this team is fun to watch. And then there's, again, the first half yesterday or overtime against Illinois where the alcohol content rises. Am I right, guys?
Well, it's a damn sight better than watching this team a year ago at this time. I mean, let's say a year ago, I think was it a year ago today? We got beat by Michigan 45-7. That was some pretty putrid football. Granted, it was against a eventual 15-0 national champion, but this team is light years ahead of where we were at a year ago right now. The really thing that gets frustrating though is there's times, and I said this yesterday at Jake's house during the game. There's times that you look back at where we were a year ago and you're like, God, we're light years better. And then when you're in a 0-0 Donnybrook with Purdue in the first half, trading punts and missed field goals with the cellar dwellers of the conference, you think, what do we have to show for it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are a lot better, but what do you have to show for it? So it's one of those things that it's difficult to keep it in perspective sometimes, especially because, we've all been wanting that year to jump ahead. We all got to talking about the 7-0 heading into Ohio State, things like that. So this team does keep winning. They are fun to watch when they're clicking. They're just a little bit, want to rip out what's left of my hair when they're not clicking. And then from there, it's just wanting to see this team put together a full game finally. And I think eventually it'll happen, but it's just every game, there just seems to be a little bit more of a question mark over that center guard area of the offensive line, which is kind of what I wanted to segue next into.
We will. Aaron Keene says they still seem to play up or down to the opponent. Is that – I don't know. I felt that they took care of the teams that they were supposed to take care of early in the season. I don't think they played down to UTEP. I don't think they played down to UNI. I think they handled business. I think the momentum and energy and motivation was all there to take care of business with Colorado. Illinois is not a bad team. Both teams were, we were 22, they were 24, and we lost to them in overtime. We shouldn't have, but we did. But I think the only one that maybe we played, we just didn't play well. And Jake mentioned this, we talked about this, he and I, before the show started, Hossie, before you were here, is when you look at the statistics and you look at the fact that, Nebraska had over 400 yards of offense, and our defense held Purdue to 224 yards. It's such a weird outcome because on one hand, you think that the score should have been 42 or 49-10, but then the way the first half was, you look at the final score and be like, oh, it was closer than the final score would indicate. So it was just a real unique game. I think when we look back at the Purdue game is not going to define this season. We will progress from it. We'll look at it, and again, it's going to be the anomaly because it could have gone either way. We could have just boat raced them from the beginning, or again, like I said, 28-10. It was closer than it looked, and again, part of that being we had 14 points within a minute. So I don't know. Your guys' thoughts?
Statistically speaking, what we did to Purdue defensively is right in line with what we did to them last year. So, if you're going to talk about the end of the Illinois game, heading into the Purdue game, that's a good point of, hey, defense showed that they improved from one game to another. They didn't let a team get right on them. But, yeah, if you tally up, the missed field goals, the 3 missed field goals, Ramirez's touchdown being wiped off the board, let's just call that 28 points. Let's just say that we execute and finish on all those drives. That's 56-10 right there. It's just kind of like the Colorado game that it very easily could have been 56-10 if not for the penalties, bringing back a bunch of explosive plays. It was a misleading game, and it was weird from the standpoint of Purdue had about 225 yards total offense, which probably 75 of those came on their last garbage time drive. And yet it felt like they were marching up and down the field on us all game long. It was a very strange game, Jake.
And they weren't, but it felt like they were.
Yep. It just felt like we had our backs on the wall, against the wall.
I believe, and I could be wrong, I believe we held them to right around 50 yards, if not less, in rushing yards.
Yep.
How many times did we get to Hudson Card? Does anyone know off the top of their head?
I think we got
5
times.
5 times. Yeah. And by the way, I'm not a big Hudson Card fan. I think don't really think he's really that great, but he's got pretty good feeling in the pocket.
He's mobile in the pocket.
He's mobile in the pocket. He can step up. He can move a lot. I mean, we could have had him a couple more times, but he made guys miss, and he's good there. Yeah, same thing. It felt like they were moving up and down the field on us, and when you look at it, you're like, they didn't. So I can't really define why I feel like they're like, that's kind of what 3 opponents in a row I feel like kind of marched all over us that really haven't. And Illinois, they only lost to Penn State, 21-7 yesterday?
21-7. Probably. I think that game would have been a lot different had that been played in Champaign instead of Happy Valley.
Yeah. I'm trying to check time.
I got it here. Nebraska had the ball for 30 minutes and 18 seconds, and Purdue 29-42. So damn near as even as you're going to get on time of possession. That was nuts.
Yeah.
So we have
one thing I want to point out too, and it'll segue into what I wanted to talk about, the offensive line. But
yes, I'm sorry.
Similar to what Jake mentioned, what we just discussed about feeling like our backs are against the wall, like they're just marching up and down on us. There's a similar phenomenon on offense with Marcus Satterfield, where in game you feel like, oh, what's the play calling? Why are we getting we're almost too aggressive on first down? That puts us behind the sticks on second down. We try to run duo or inside zone, pick up 2, then it's 3rd and 8, and we got to put the ball, solely it rests on Raiola's arm. And then you get to the end of the game and you kind of look at it over the context of how drives finish, and he calls good games. But I think right now it's a little bit too much boom or bust right now, with big plays being the focal point of the offense, not necessarily in the passing game, because Raiola is really not hitting deep balls very much in the passing game. What he is he's just, efficient at an elite level in the short and intermediate passing game. But in the run game, I think one of the things that kind of makes us think that Satterfield's not calling a good game in the moment is that lack of push from A gap to A gap, the guard, center guard area. I mean, those guys just aren't getting a lot of displacement. They're not displacing the line of scrimmage even a yard forward. And so when you're looking at that, it's like, is that a function of not having the horses up front to do it, or is that a function of the design of our run game? I think one of the things we're seeing it this year, because we're switching over from what we did last year with mobile quarterbacks to this year having a pro-style passer. It's the same thing as when we went from Tommy Armstrong in 2016 to Tanner Lee in 2017. When you lose the threat of being able to hold a backside defensive end with the threat of the quarterback running game, fronts can play you much differently. And so when we transition to having such an austere run game design, duo, inside zone, wide zone, I've said this before, I think it was a couple of weeks ago that I said this after the Northern Iowa game, we're giving defenders the opportunity just to defeat the same block really over and over and over again. They're not worried about, hey, am I being read? Hey, am I being trapped? Hey, is somebody going to come, am I going to get whammed by an H-back? Hey, is this a crunch play coming? You're not your eyes aren't having to be all over the place, which if where your eyes go, your body tends to go as well in football. So if you're looking around making sure, okay, I'm not going to get ear hold here, you're not going to be able to play as aggressively trying to defeat a down block or a base block or a reach block. And so one area, and I know it's been pointed out in the comments here, saying Satterfield gets too gimmicky. We kind of have to be gimmicky right now. Like, the only time we have success in the run game is a split flow concept, a cutback lane where we are creating misdirection. We're not good enough to line up and just mash it at people right now, right in between the tackles. So we're going to have to get comfortable with probably Ja'Cory Barney. I honestly think it should probably be 3 to 6 carries a game, run carries a game for him on sweeps and, different stuff like that. I think Dowdell probably in the 10 to 15 range. And honest to God, I think Emmett Johnson probably needs to be getting 22 carries a game. He's far and away our best running back. Far and away our best running back.
Yeah, that kind of changed over the last couple weeks. It kind of looked like it was Dowdell running away with the job, and then Emmett kind of took it back.
Dowdell just tries to seek out contact almost too much.
Speaking of
Part
that,
of me appreciates that.
yeah, we're missing Mazuka.
Yeah.
You know, Haas, to your point, and I mean this with all the love in the world. The guy's an asshole, and I feel like if I told him that, he'd be like,
offensive lineman.
He'd look at me and be like, "Thank you."
Mm-hmm.
Like he is. The guy's a jerk, and he plays like an asshole, and we miss that. You know, I always say I respect and love for anybody that straps it up for this university and goes to war for us, but it doesn't really feel like we got the guys right now. And I don't. Yeah, part of it's scheme, sure, but
yeah, it's a scheme and personnel right now. Yeah. I just don't feel good about Litovsky at that right guard spot.
I don't. He just, yeah.
I thought maybe this was because it was the Northern Iowa game, but I thought you were, I don't say singing his praise, but I thought you were high on Litovsky a couple weeks ago, Haas.
He played a good game against Northern Iowa.
All right. Serviceable, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, like, to Jake's point about Mazuka, you know, you got to have a standard on a team. You have to have a standard that guys are expected to meet. And I understand that Rule may not be willing to sacrifice his team's culture right now for Mazuka because, I mean, it was a pretty big, rebuild that he had to do culture-wise after taking over here. But at the same time, if it's a case of other offensive linemen don't want to play with Mazuka, that's kind of a thing that can disrupt team chemistry, especially in a tight-knit position group like the offensive line. But at some point, you got to, if he's your best player and he's your best chance to go win games and he rehabs himself, through whatever restorative pathway he needs to go through to get back in the team's good graces, if he meets the requirements, he meets the requirements. I know yesterday morning there was all the talk that he was off the team because I think it was reported somewhere that he tried to fight a tow truck driver, which who wouldn't? I mean, your car's getting towed. That's a bad day right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to Tiger Shark Diver. Rule said that he is not off the team. So it sounds like some of the reports when he was flying out to California might have been a little premature.
And I'll say this too is that was one of the first questions that Rule fielded in the post-game presser about Mazuka, and he's like, I'm not going to talk about that now. He said we can talk about that on Monday. So I appreciate that. Like, hey, we're here to talk about this game and the guys who made this trip, and the other stuff. There'll be another time and place for that. So I actually appreciated that response. But he did say, yeah, he's still on the team. So. Rostovsky says, I think it's just the offensive line coach doesn't want to coach Mazuka right now. Rule seems to be ready to play him. So that's a whole other.
Yeah. There could be that too.
Yeah. So looking at, we talked a little bit about the stats here. Nebraska threw for 257 yards, while Purdue threw for 174. Nebraska ran for 161 yards net and held the Boilermakers to 50 yards. So, I mean, I'm not displeased with the defensive effort, I'm not saying that they're perfect. Obviously there's always improvements to be made, but have they, I better knock on wood or, something like that, but what's the most yardage that this defense has given up on the ground this year? Was it in the Illinois game?
Yeah. Yep.
Was it over 100?
I think it's about 177 yards.
Okay, that is a lot. But again, it's an Illinois team that.
Well, I thought the defense played a lot better yesterday from a communication standpoint. Guys knew their assignments. We didn't see a whole lot of missed assignments, especially in the back end and coverage. And so that was a good step forward. If we're going to be committed to playing quarters coverage, then that's what you want to see. Guys passing off receivers, matching their routes through their coverage zones. There's a really good shot. I'll have to see if I can dig it up and put it on Twitter. But it's kind of a low all 22 angle from when Purdue was on offense. And you can see Hartzog really drives home. It's a textbook example of pattern matching, where he's really matching the slot receiver as he's in his back pedal. And then when the receiver makes his break, he's matching the pattern and really carrying him through it while still keeping his eyes to the line of scrimmage, eyes on the quarterback. So it's a good example there. They're getting better. Illinois still, they just had a really good game plan against us.
Yeah.
They have some great receivers. Like Jake was talking about earlier, we don't have the dudes at the guard center guard position, in the run game. Dudes are going to win more than scheme's ever going to win. And when you got dudes, you're going to win more than you lose. And Illinois, they had us outmatched there.
Speaking of dudes, though, I feel like I have a tendency to get negative on this show. Maybe I need to be more positive. Sierra Wright.
He's a dog.
Ooh, that dude coming out at kind of the woodwork, stepping in for Tommy Hill. Hopefully Tommy gets better soon, dealing with the plantar fasciitis. That's really painful for anyone that's ever dealt with it. It caused a lot of pain. But, man, Sierra Wright coming in and playing extremely well. So, yeah, good on him. I feel good with him out there.
I do too. I honestly, he's playing at the level that I expected Tommy Hill to play at.
Same.
Yeah, I didn't feel like there was a big letdown there at all, I think from the secondary perspective, I've been pretty positive about that position group for months. I think they have a really solid blend of veteran leadership like Marquise Buford, Deshaun Singleton, Tommy Hill, and then you've got the Malcolm Hartzog, who's not new to this. I mean, I feel like, maybe it's just because he's so much shorter than everybody that he seems like he's still fresh out of high school. But, then you guys see, like, it's a strong group. And I feel like they're playing pretty well, as a unit.
I think there were a few coverage busts, and one of them actually was on Hartzog, which I wanted to bring up. Like, for the small as he is, he's nails in the run game, in run support. Great, even on a few slot nickel blitzes that we brought, but he just, for whatever reason, kind of gets put in a blender a little bit with some concepts against really athletic slot receivers.
I want to look here. It got brought up on Thursday night, the 5 Heart podcast. I'm not going to mention who brought it up, but it wasn't me. But they were indicating that we had to really look out for Devin Mockabee. And I pulled up some statistics at the time. I was like, yeah, he burned us in 2022, had over 100 yards. But last year, over 200, thank you. Last year, I think we held him to around 50. And yesterday, 41. We made essentially, and largely because of 5 sacks for 20-something yards, but we held their ground game to 50 net yards, and I don't know. Call me crazy. This is going to coming from me. I've been known to be a little bit more cynical than Haas, you might remember from the good old days, but I'm still pretty upbeat and positive about this team. Like, I feel like there's a lot going on for it. You look at the offensive side, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different players attempt to rush the football yesterday. Now, some of them, like Carter Nelson, didn't go anywhere.
Love the idea, though.
And why not put your 6'5", 6'6"
state champion high jumper?
That's right. It was just, I don't want to say poor execution. It was just well prepared for, I suppose. But hell, you had Ja'Cory Barney 4 carries for 66 yards. That led the team. Emmett Johnson 8 carries for 50 yards. Dante 9 for 21. Dante just didn't get going. Gabe Urban Jr. got in there, for a carry. I mean, he was close. He was, inches or a foot away from having that touchdown, and you could just tell he really wanted that. And I'm a big Gabe Urban Jr. guy, so I wanted him to have that as well. Wasn't meant to be, but then you have Dylan Raiola, spreading the ball around again. 8 players with receptions. Jamal Banks over 80 yards again. I wish we could have got Isaiah Nayor, a few more of those the back shoulder throws that, again, they did their job as far as moving the sticks on some of those DPIs, but I'm just not ready to cash out my chips and go home with this team yet. There's a lot of football to play. We're 5 games into a minimum 12-game season, and we'll get to it because living in Omaha, David Matney, the official realtor of the 5 Heart Podcast, did have a question. In fact, hell, let's get into it right now. At this point, how do we finish? Are we a 6-win team or a 9-win team? Talk about coming out guns blazing.
We're good enough to win every game on paper, except for 2. I'd say Ohio State and USC are the 2 that I would have some reservations about. So that right there's 9-3. I also still have some reservations about what Rule mentioned yesterday about it's a team that's still growing and learning how to win. You just worry about some of the growing pains rearing their heads again. Kind of said it last week. There were some issues against Illinois, both from a coaching staff and player personnel standpoint, that looked very similar to the same issues that plagued us going 0-4 last year in November. So that, if those issues kind of rear their heads again, you could be looking at 6 wins. And again, it's progress. It's not the progress people want to see.
Not when they were talking about 7-0 going to Columbus.
Progress nonetheless.
Yeah.
Rebuilds are messy. So that, I think we're ahead of schedule, but I still, in the back of my mind, have to keep thinking rebuilds are messy.
Jake, take a stab at this one, brother.
So I think we're closer to a 9-win team right now. We got to put together complete games. And, I've said this, I think both shows I've been on to this point. I'll say it again. I mean, our leading rusher was a wide receiver. So I'm one of these, your leading rusher should be a running back. Your leading receiver should be a receiver. I love those jet sweeps that we're doing, those jet handoffs with Barney and whatever, but I'm pretty concerned with our ability to actually run the ball, ace formation. Just hand the ball or just give it to a running back, and a lot of those runs are getting stopped right at the line of scrimmage. A lot more than this should be.
That's why it almost seems like something in the red zone. We touched on this yesterday during the game. It's almost the point of you hit the red zone, bring in Harburg for a play. The threat of the quarterback run game has to be there, in goal line, short yard situations. I'd rather do it that way than do it a little – it's felt a little gimmicky, some of the stuff we've done with Harburg. Use him for what he is, 6'5", 220-pound battering ram.
Yeah, and I like bringing Nelson in for that goal line. I like that, but again, it feels gimmicky. You got 4 running backs. Put Irvin in or put Dowdell in, and your offensive line. Hammer, yeah, it's Purdue.
I would like, if we're going to struggle to establish an inside run and be so reliant on being on the outside, which the entire game plan you could tell was built on outside run yesterday.
Yes.
Start running toss. Start running some more tosses, not the toss that the pitch was high to Dowdell on 3rd and 3, but the actual toss crack, toss wide, pin everybody back inside with your bunch formation, pull some linemen around. It's something that you're going to have to try whatever you can to get a consistent ground game going from the traditional tailback run game.
Yeah, but we need better blocking on the perimeter because other than Alex Bullock right now, our receivers are getting their asses kicked.
You literally took what I was going to say next. I was going to say Alex Bullock played a great game yesterday.
Man.
May not even recorded the catch, but he played a great game getting it.
Awesome game by that guy. But, yeah, I think it's hard to run those toss cracks and those outside pitches when Banks, Nayor, they're getting the shit beat out of them out there.
Because I think
blown up.
I think on X I erroneously credited that 2-man block to Borkature, but I believe it was Alex Bullock who blocked two
yesterday as well.
Yeah, but and that freed up who was it? Emma Johnson, right, for the touchdown.
Yep.
Yeah. We need more of that. We need one to two hats. One guy taking out two hats of the opposition every time. Oh man, just imagine how much the field would open up if but that is also the kind of perimeter blocking from the receivers that we not necessarily been able to execute at all times this season. So, like I said, perimeter blocking, it'll get better. I don't know. I'm usually not the optimistic one, but I feel exceptionally optimistic about where things are going. So I do.
I hope you don't think that I'm saying like there is no hope. Fuck everything. Go red.
No. He's here though.
I was texting Jake this morning. Like I'm pleased with the performance that we had yesterday, especially when you look at it from a missed assignment standpoint, a lack of physicality standpoint can be a little disappointing. I'm most impressed with it from more of like a culture standpoint, from a mental toughness standpoint. This is a game that we would have lost a couple years ago. But to your point, Greg, I'm not ready to cash in on this team either. I still think they're gonna get better, but got to see that those issues get fixed week over week. So we saw some issues.
Are you saying
get better?
Incremental improvement.
Incremental improvement. Yes.
Yes.
But to the point about the receivers, like you got Ron Brown on staff, who might be the greatest teacher of receiver blocking in the history of college football. I don't know if he's already working with Garrett McGuire, but that's a no-brainer right there where he works with Garrett McGuire to teach these guys how to block. Because if we're going to be honest, that's probably another position coach, kind of similar to Ed Foley, that I think, could have some fair criticisms levied in their direction.
I do want to talk, we were joking about John Johnston, and he's lurking here and there because he said, what the hell's wrong with gimmicks if they work?
Not always reliable.
But we've talked about Heinrich Harburg being in there, and I remember, Heinrich Harburg is in the shotgun or something like that, and Dylan Raiola's set wide to the top of the screen, and I'm just thinking, like, there's no way in hell that ball is going to Dylan Raiola because there's nobody who's out there by himself. There's nobody out there to block a defender, and the last thing you want is your golden boy, stud, freshman, 5-star, whatever, starting quarterback to take that kind of contact. So
I kind of hated that actually.
It was. Go ahead.
If you're gonna just bring in Harburg to, grind clock, salt the game away, fine. Like I'm in favor of it. Just put Raiola on the bench. Like it's just dumb.
I didn't want to see Harburg.
You're opening him up to anything unnecessary, especially like we've all been in this conference long enough. We know that defenses take cheap shots in this conference.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be career and season suicide if he were to, go out for a pass from that formation or, you never know, a non-contact soft tissue injury.
I wanted to see when Nebraska got the ball back and it was 2.5 minutes left in the game, something like that. I really just wanted them to go execute the 2-minute offense that we have seen them execute in the past and put another score up. And I'm not saying, because I don't follow Vegas and spreads and things like that. I just wanted them to show that they could do it, to build a little bit of momentum. I know that's not really Matt Rule's style. Go back to the UTEP game. He's like, we didn't really want to embarrass him out there. I don't think it's embarrassing the other team to, you had the win, but let's just go out there and in live situation, let's just do what we've worked on. Let's compete. Is that the wrong mentality? I really wanted them to just go down and score in that last possession.
I mean, not the wrong mentality. I'm a big believer. I'd love to see us finish a game with our foot firmly on the accelerator.
Yeah.
Step on somebody's throat. We haven't done that all year. So I don't think it's wrong at all, Greg. Jake?
Yeah. I've been very open about this. I don't care anything about running up the score. I think it's BS that the team with the lead is supposed to ease up to not hurt the opponent's feelings, but the opponent's allowed to keep throwing haymakers to try to get back into the game.
Exactly.
And then when they do get back into the game, it's like, well, we lost because we were trying to not bury them. You beat them by 70, do it. And a few weeks ago, somebody made a comment like, oh, yeah, not in high school. Yeah, of course not in high school. Like, the talent gap is too ridiculous. There's some teams that they could win by 140 if they wanted to. I mean, at this level, you're playing Purdue. If you can beat them 70 to, like Notre Dame did, 65-7, do it.
Take every opportunity.
Did Notre Dame ease up?
No.
They foot on the accelerator, buried Purdue. And that's what I want to see out of a Nebraska team. I want to see that out of this team. Which in the second half, we dominated them.
We figured it out. They said in the comments long ago that the field goal that Purdue had was like the alarm clock moment that kind of woke our guys up. Charles Hewlett said you wanted to see the hope fade from their eyes. I didn't. It had nothing to do with Purdue. I just wanted Nebraska to show that they can execute, play competent football, try to minimize, advantageous penalties. Just go out there and score without needing any help to do it. I just wanted them to go down there and again, maybe it would have pissed off Vegas, and maybe people would be like, "Oh, damn," whatever. I just wanted them to go out and score just to show that they could. Take Purdue out of the equation. I really just wanted them to go out there and execute some clean football.
I agree. 35-3, 35-10 would have looked a lot better.
Yeah, it's already pretty demoralizing when your stadium is chanting "Go Big Red" and it's your home stadium.
Yeah, and Husker power. That was
makes
great.
Me proud to be a Husker fan, but I'm going to be honest. I felt kind of embarrassed for the Purdue players at that point in the game. So, and again, it's not about embarrassing the opponent. It's not about dragging them or whatever, unless it's Colorado or Iowa. Any team that wears black and yellow or black and gold or some combination of those.
Hell is painted black and gold.
I'm fine with making it personal against teams like, opponents like that. But in Purdue, there you go, black and gold. But it's like Greg said, it's about us executing and us showing that we can do it. It's not about the opponent. It's about us.
Yep. Regardless, it's a nameless, faceless opponent. You go out there, you control what you can control.
And I love the idea of getting, of our most athletic players the ball in creative ways. 100% love that. I just think it shouldn't be your bread and butter. And right now it feels like it's our bread and butter on offense. We're getting most of our yardage doing things that I feel like should be creative ways to get the ball in the hands of those players, not the primary.
Something that you call when you're at the 20 heading into the red zone, instead of that wheel route to Harburg was on the third play of the game.
Yeah.
That just kind of felt a little too much gimmicky there. And John pointed out that a counter would be too gimmicky for this offense.
That's right. I got that here.
John, we tried to run counter. Those A gaps, we couldn't keep DTs from penetrating through there, disrupting pull.
I do know. So John officially said maybe we're off on our definitions of what a gimmick is. A counter seems to be a gimmick in this offense. We talked last week, Haas, about maybe just doing some misdirection and things like that.
Well,
we didn't.
The jet sweeps, the end arounds. That's a good example of split flow because we're not just like going out there going, okay, we're gonna run this double reverse to Jalen Lloyd. No, we set it up off the run. We like to hand the ball off and then kind of run that little X counter, X receiver coming around on the end around. They call it the bluff play. So, we're setting it up. So, I would like to see more stuff like, under Mike Riley, we would always do jet sweep action attached to run plays. We're going to have to start doing that, or escort motions to get an extra blocker to the point of attack really quickly. That's the kind of stuff that I've been talking about.
Haas, any political aspirations?
Hell no.
Roger Moore says Haas for U.S. Senate.
No.
All right. Haas, you played foosball in the day?
A little bit.
TSD wants to know. I know the answer to this question. You were on a team with somebody else who was on the team. Am I right?
Huh?
I know that's a very roundabout ways, but I think we've talked about this on the show before. They're for the Dragons.
Yes, I knew. I played football with Andy Janovich's older brother Dan.
There you go. Who was even better than Andy, but had bad injury, right?
A lot of injury issues.
Yeah. If not for U.S. Senate, how about for Warlord?
Sure, first warlord of Nebraska. Sure.
Wait. I'm trying to figure out where you would invade first, Iowa or Colorado.
Gary, Indiana.
That's so great because look, I know that story. They don't, and that's fine. That's even better.
Just phenomenal.
Jake, you know the story, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Gary, Indiana. We're gonna fly over Iowa, Illinois, and just take that Gary, Indiana.
Yep.
So,
God, great gas stations and truck stops in that town. Yeah, great.
Rostowski says Haas salts the earth in Gary, Indiana. Yep. That's tremendous stuff.
Jake, what were you gonna chime in?
well, I saw a comment Fred made about instead of having Harburg run that wheel route, he'd rather have seen it be like Ja'Cory Barney.
Yeah.
Or any other playmakers we have. Right. So this is kind of what
any of them with some speed.
Yeah, this is what I'm getting at. Like, yeah, I'm all for getting the ball into Harburg's hands because I think he's a playmaker, in certain ways, like he can contribute, but you got guys, I think, that can execute that route better and guys that have more potential for a big play. Doesn't have to be Barney, but it could be I feel there's other ways you can do it. And of course, then it would be like, well, it's the routes designed to Harburg, so that way it's more unexpected. Or the defense maybe is going to be expecting Harburg to go deep. Sure, I guess that's fine. I'm not in love with it.
I'm not either, especially because a wheel route's something where you're not throwing a jump ball up to somebody on a wheel route. A wheel route's getting speed behind the defender and hitting them in stride. And Barney is that guy. I'd much rather see it be Barney as well.
Well, again, receivers be receivers. Harburg's a quarterback, and I believe he is a quarterback. I never was one of these guys that was like, oh, we need to move him to running back. We need to move him to tight end or H. No, he's a quarterback.
Did you catch any of the Saints-Falcons game today?
No.
So they lined up Taysom Hill at I-back, and they ran just an inside zone play to him for a touchdown. And we all know Taysom Hill's an athletic freak.
Oh, yeah.
Great player. But watching him try to run inside zone at 6'2", 6'3" from the running back position, it was awkward. It just didn't look right, And so it's one of those things where Harburg's not a running back. He's not a tight end either. I don't see him as a hand in the ground guy blocking a defensive end in the run game. He is just a running quarterback, and that's the way that he should be used. If we're going to use gimmicks, if we're going to use short yardage packages for him, that should be it. But with Ja'Cory Barney, the way that we're using Barney right now, this is the way Frost should have used Wan'Dale Robinson. Instead of having Wan'Dale Robinson run for 2.2 yards per carry, slamming into the back of his offensive lineman.
I hated every bit of that.
Just a horrible time.
Horrible misuse of a talented player.
So I love Ja'Cory Barney. I agree with somebody in here. They said it. He'll be a freshman All-American if he can stay healthy. I think that he's going to have an absolutely insane career here by the time it's all said and done. Might go down as one of the all-time greats if he stays healthy.
That would be Tiger Shark Diver. Said a freshman All-American and superstar if he can. But you're saying even loftier, perhaps, expectations beyond freshman All-American.
I mean, that's a guy that I think when it's all said and done, he could be one of the all-time greats that's ever played here if he stays healthy. Like the explosion that he shows is, something that we haven't had at that position in a long time. He would have been a great wing back the old Husker wingbacks of the 90s. And then beyond that, just find ways to get him the football. Always find ways to get him the football. The guy played quarterback in high school because he was on such a crappy team down in Miami. And Rules even said, if it wasn't for his grades and the fact he had to play quarterback, he probably would have been at Alabama. That's the kind of talent this guy is. So, use him. I 3 to 5 run game touches per game, and I think that he just needs to be targeted. I'd love to see him with about 5 receptions a game too.
Go ahead, Jake. I thought you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just thinking Fred and I are pretty much thinking pretty similar here. I was actually going to make that comparison, the Harburg and Tebow. I'm not saying it's Tim Tebow, obviously, but that archetypal player, where sure his passing ability may be questioned at times and maybe it's not the most polished, but the guy he quarterbacked us to 5 wins last year.
Yep.
And he's a quarterback. I was never high on people that were, or the opinion of moving him to a different position. And I agree, give Barney the ball any way possible. We didn't run very many plays. How many plays did we run yesterday?
56.
Yeah. So you're not going to have a running back really one back with how much we spread the ball around with 20 carries when you only run 56 plays.
Right.
So,
we kind of run a little league offense. I mean that in all due respect. I'm not calling the concepts little league or anything like that. It's the little league offense of we just spread the ball around so much.
Yep.
We get everybody involved.
It's the only way that I would have been able to touch the ball in little league.
Were they bringing you in for the 5th quarter, Greg?
I was when I played. This is a true story. When I played high school baseball, I knew my role. I was the 10-run kid. I played if we were up by 10. I got to play if we were down by 10. If it was competitive, I was right there with the pitch chart or the scorebook, doing my thing. But that's cool. Still got a varsity letter out of it. Tiger Shark Diver wanted to know whatever happened to Quentin Ives.
Evidently, Jack Collinsworth thought it was Quentin Ives trying to dive across the goal line.
That's what I thought too. I was like, I don't think that's accurate.
I don't think Quentin Ives is built to be a running back in the Big Ten Conference.
No.
6'3", 180 is a little long and lean in this league.
That was my confusion too, because I was like, I don't think that's Quentin Ives, but
it didn't really look like Quentin.
Well, let's just talk about how that. I think there were student broadcasts that were better than that crew yesterday calling the game.
Oh, you're going to love this comment then. Rostovsky says Peacock's $5, which is, I feel, how much they spent on the announcer's budget for the game.
When I rewatched it this morning, I'm not entirely sure that they were actually there for the game. I think they did that one remotely. They kind of had that feel.
Which is unfortunate. Part of me gets it. It was rainy, but you're in a press box, like you're in a broadcast booth. I know that. I've not done that at the D1 level, but I've called games where fans and players and coaches are out there in the suck, and you have windows that keep the suck out there because you're inside. So, no, I get that. And I don't think we ever saw the team, did we? Did we ever? We never saw, like, a lot of times they come back from, halftime or something like that, and there's that establishing shot, and I don't think we ever got one of those establishing shots.
I think they showed it one time at the very beginning, and they're in front of, you could tell they're in front of a green screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those jerks. Let's see here. I know we got to talk about this because we talked about the 5 sacks, and I'd be remiss if I didn't talk, Hoss, about one of your favorites, James Williams. He had a couple sacks in the game.
He's a dude.
I do feel like because the Purdue quarterback, he's pretty mobile. I mean, ambulatory anyway. I feel like we had to work for the 5 sacks, and I feel like Williams, a couple of them just came from perseverance. Like he just stuck with it. Yeah. But, we'll take those.
We'll take them any way we can get them.
Any way we can get them.
Yeah, he's a high motor guy.
Yep.
Let's look at some of these starred comments here. There was a very animated conversation going on here. So Zero, who I've not seen before, but that's okay. Welcome, Zero. I don't know what he's saying wrong to. I don't know if it's us or the comments. There has to be accountability with the money being invested. Bielema makes $36 million less than Rule, and their program makes how much less? It comes down to accountability.
Greg, I think you just fed a troll.
That's fine. I'm going to do it again because I like discourse. I'm in a mood.
Well, when people act like it's their money being invested, I just think it's hilarious. It's not your money.
But I do want to. If this is a troll, that's fine. Whatever. But this one here, this moment too big for Rule in Satterfield. I disagree. I think maybe Matt Rule was made for this moment. I feel like Temple. I feel like Baylor. And even, say what you want, even the Carolina Panthers all led him to this moment. And I think that he has, like we touched on it, about the officiating in the press. He's like, I think he is going to fight for Nebraska. We've already seen what he and company have been able to do on the recruiting trail. He's bringing in some talent that Nebraska has not seen in a long time, if ever. So for Zero to suggest a quick change to Braum from Louisville, that is, again, if this is a troll, cool, I fell for it. But
I love Jeff Braum, but you're never going to get him to leave Louisville.
Because he's an alum, right?
His family is royalty in that town.
Yeah.
One of the forgotten really good college quarterback was Brian Braum.
Yep.
Ended up with the Packers for a few years, never really made it in the NFL, didn't really have the arm strength to hack it, but he was a really good college quarterback.
Yeah, they won a Orange Bowl. They beat Wake Forest in 06.
Yep, he was number 12 for that team. I remember he was really, really good.
Here's a fun one for both you guys. Charles Hewlett wants to know, who's a faster quarterback, the Alabama guy last night or Taylor Martinez in his prime?
Ooh.
I'd say Taylor Martinez in his prime.
Taylor Martinez was
next level.
Yeah, he was pretty next level. I mean, it'd be close, but I'm going to say Taylor.
Yeah. Jalen Milroe, that's probably your Heisman winner this year. I think he's going to tear it up.
Looked every bit of it.
I'll just say this. Better him than any of the guys in Colorado.
I think that goes without saying, Greg.
I know, but I wanted to say it.
I mean, like the fact that you still think that, the Sanders family has, any respect for something such as the Heisman Trophy, that they could win it. Just lunacy.
Sybil Jack says, you boys sure look like you've been working on your muscles.
Little Tropic Thunder reference.
I know they're not talking about me. Clearly it's you guys.
Yes, thank you.
Jake, you have something to do with that? In the greater Omaha metro area? Omaha,
yep.
Lincoln?
Yeah. Omaha, Kansas City.
Kansas City, okay.
Yep.
I don't know how much you're willing or wanting to say, but we know that you help the health and fitness conscious folks in those communities, and we appreciate it for you. So
yes.
At this point, when they say all three, we know you need to get your eyes checked because we're just gonna move on. Roger Moore says God Country option. I thought that would
Dylan.
Yeah. I would give a good curse.
Dylan's I think he's great. He is not an option quarterback.
Dude doesn't want to run.
Does when he has to.
Yeah.
Good to see.
Yeah, if it's something where game's on the line, he'll do it. But I think he's going to take every opportunity to get the ball in the hands of playmakers.
Mm-hmm. Hey, at the end of the day, if Nebraska has more points than the opposition, I'm fine with whatever decisions are made.
That's right.
Jaden Santoni said almost an hour and a half ago, went from a first half heavy team to a second half. I think we kind of glossed over this earlier or touched on it. To a second half heavy team, and we finished the game strong. Again, I at least talked. I wish we would have, like you said, Haas, put the pedal to the metal there and put one more up, but wasn't meant to be. But yeah, I mean, if this team ever figures out how to play 4 quarters and have them be in the same game on the same day, like the sky's the limit, right? I mean, we can't play a great half here and then take the other half off and then wake up late and then come back after halftime and figure out what football is again. If we put it all together, look out. Again, that's my unparalleled optimism, I suppose. Living in Omaha, David Matney says, any game that comes down to a field goal is a lost cause.
Yep. Iowa last year. Maryland, to a degree.
What did happen to kegs, eggs, and football? We had kegs and eggs. Football didn't show up until after lunchtime, I would say.
Yep.
I like this. Tell me what you guys think of this. We had God Country option. Highlander says God Country Fried Steak an option.
Always a solid choice.
Oh yeah,
all 3 of them.
Hey, it's 10 o'clock. I'm still hungry, so you know.
Are we a white gravy on country fried steak or a brown gravy on country fried steak?
You're asking me?
Everybody. I'm a white gravy guy. This is a topic I'm very passionate about.
Yep, white gravy, no brown gravy.
I would go white gravy as well.
Okay. We're all in agreement here.
Brown gravy has its place, but not on a country fried steak.
That's right.
White gravy.
Rostovsky says white. Pit Snipe Husker says both. I don't know what the hell that's about.
One or the other. Pit Snipe, one or the other.
Brown is a sin, says Corby. Only white gravy. Charles says white gravy all day long with pepper, sausage gravy, white gravy. Where's John in the gravy truck? Great question.
Where's John in the gravy train?
Simple Jack says white all damn day long. And speaking of John, well, let's use this opportunity here real quick to do that thing we do, which is promote everything else that is here on the Coronation YouTube channel. Of course, by that, it's an extension of Facebook and X, but John Dam Johnston will have Monday Night Therapy tomorrow night, and he'll be talking to a Rutgers guy. That's all we know, just Rutgers guy. I hope that's how he refers to him throughout the entire show is, hey, Rutgers guy, we just lost Jake.
I think he's still there. He must have just gotten up.
No. But hey, as a reminder, real quick here, while Jake's stepped aside, if you are joining us on YouTube, make sure that you like this video, subscribe if you haven't already to the Coronation YouTube channel, and ring that bell for notifications so that you are aware every time we drop a new stream, a live event, or recorded video. John's instant reactions. Hopefully they're more outside and not in the bathroom. But all of it right there, all the thumbs ups and everything else that you need. Corby was at the game yesterday. All Purdue and Nebraska fans were saying that it didn't look like either team was going to be able to win the game, at least by halftime. It was from missed field goals to blocked field goals. It's just not. Yeah. Go ahead, Hoss.
I was just going to say, we all do it. I love the overreaction in the moment takes that we all have during games like that.
So much fun. Stephanie Jackson. Go ahead, Hoss. I'm sorry.
Just said it's an emotional game.
It is. That reminds me of Boys of Fall. You ever see the movie documentary Boys of Fall?
Kenny Chesney?
Well, he did the song, but it's also a documentary.
Nope, never seen a documentary.
I think it was Joe Namath who said that football is an emotional game. So, but you're right. From the players and the coaches, but obviously the fans. It makes me want to go and listen to the song again. When I was in terrestrial radio, I'd play that song at about 6:30 on a Friday night, right before starting the high school football broadcast. And we go into coaches' interviews and things like that. Got to get people in the mood. Stephanie Jackson says, I'm not worried about Matt Rule. You can see the confidence. I think we're going to win a big game this season. It'll either be USC or Ohio State. I think it's in the cards because we have Dylan Raiola.
I'll gladly take that.
Yeah. Let's see. Never Mind Me says we got to play a complete game. I think we've talked about this. It seems like we show up for one half every game. And Pit Snipe Husker says, Hoss, are we going to evolve out of these aligned problems? Young talent just never seems to work out for us over the long haul.
I think that we could. Last year's offensive line got better as the year went on. They were playing decently by the time November rolled around, and that was even when Harburg was out, Sims was out. We were down to Purdue. So it wasn't like, they were being propped up by a quarterback running to make their numbers look better, make their performance look better. It's a long season still. You hope that they get it together. I'm more concerned with guys like, Henry Latovsky, who's been in program for a while. They're not showing the ability to put things together. I mean, I think this is his third year already as a member of the team. 22, he was a freshman, so 23, 24. So, 3 years. He's just not showing any good development. Or at least he's not on the developmental track that you would hope that he would be at this point. So I like Ben Scott, but there's only so much you can do when you don't have a good guard next to you as a center. And I think if you go back and look at a lot of the games, you'll see that most of the A-gap issues do come from that right side A-gap between Ben Scott and Latovsky. Because as Jake and I have always discussed, you forget that Justin Evans is even out there. He's that solid, So that right guard position is what I'm most concerned about.
Let's see here. A lot more comments, surprisingly more comments about Gravy.
Yeah.
But
I sparked the conversation, I guess, that one, but
we have a gravy cyst, gravy. Anyway, I talk about you've got Fred says, good deal, Pit Snipe Husker. Glad you like all gravy. Nobody likes a gravy cyst. So that's when this became the best podcast in the world. And we'll take it. All right. Well, shall we – anything else? Are we all done talking Purdue?
I think so.
Did you think this would go an hour and a half, guys?
Yeah.
I mean, you knew it was me, so the three of us in a live crowd. All right. Well, I've got the predictions that we established before the game, and we'll make any adjustments necessary. But, Jake, you said Nebraska would beat Rutgers 2017. By the way, you said Nebraska would beat Purdue 31-14. And, Haas, you said 26-10 initially, and you changed it to 41-14. If you'd like, I'll honor the 26-10 that you said initially.
All right. You got the receipts. We'll go with it.
All right. So, Jake, 2017 Nebraska was your prediction. Any changes you want to make?
No, we'll just keep what I got.
Now, is that going to be a missed PAT, or is that going to be 2 field goals?
You just took it out. You just took it right away from me.
Sorry.
No, I was thinking about it. I don't want to say a missed PAT because I feel like that brings negative energy. So I'm going to say we bounce back. We make a couple field goals. We won't be able to finish drives, unfortunately, in the red zone. So we'll make a couple chippies and kicking will actually win us a game for once.
Showing some faith in Ed Foley and the boys.
I get negative on the show. I don't like being negative. Let's get positive.
Fair enough, man.
I thought I wanted to introduce like a little segment that would put you guys on the spot, risers and fallers. Couple players that we're buying stock in, maybe a couple players, not to be mean. That's not to be mean to the players, but maybe some guys that aren't playing to a level they should be.
Yeah, when you mentioned this yesterday, I was like, that's a damn good idea.
Yeah. So, like, my two that I'd be buying stock in just to kick it off would be Brian, not to cut this off, Gregor, completely change.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Would be like Brian Buschini for sure, and Sierra Wright. Those would be my two guys I'm buying stock in right now.
Let me ask you this, because, again, I didn't have the stats up earlier when we were talking about, but did you guys know that Sierra led the team in tackles yesterday?
I did not.
Mm-hmm.
He had 5. I mean, he and Mekhi Bayer each had 5, but Sierra's were 5 solo tackles. Bayer had a few assist tackles in there as well, but he also had a couple of pass breakups. So I don't think that's a bad. That's not a bad one to buy stock in. Hoss, if you had to buy stock in 2,
I would say John Bullock.
That's what I was going to say.
And I would also say Emmett Johnson.
Yep.
I'll stay with John Bullock because I was leaning that way, and I mean you realistically got to go if not Emmett Johnson, and if you've already bought stock in Dylan Raiola, which obviously I think we all have, the other one that's really obvious would be Ja'Cory Barney Jr.
Yep.
So
yep, that was the other one I was considering. So
let's flip it to the other side then. Who are you selling right now?
Henry Latovsky. Sorry, definitely looks like the weakest link on that offensive line right now. And maybe Nash, not because Nash isn't playing well. I just think he could be playing much better and he could be much more disruptive than he has been. So I'm going to sell a little bit of my Nash Hutmaker stock right now.
I'm going to say Latovsky was my first one as well. And I'm probably going to go with Malcolm Hartzog.
Yeah. So
let's see. I don't even know his name. How about let's just go with the 2 long snappers.
Yeah,
that worked. Ed Foley.
Ed Foley, yeah.
Vince Wassa says sell the long snapper.
Yep.
of one mind. Yeah, apparently, I guess if Nebraska football is successful based on how much airtime we gave them during the offseason on the 5 Heart podcast, that might be why the long snapping situation is failing. So it's all my fault. All right.
What was my Rutgers prediction?
Your Rutgers prediction was 24-20 Nebraska.
Okay, I'm sticking with it.
Okay.
We're going to say it'll be a defensive touchdown, though.
I'm sticking with the win. I am going to say, we're all. This is going to be a 1-score victory for Nebraska. I'm going to say 28-24.
Okay.
And again, I hate to say it, no faith in field goals right now.
Yeah, John agrees. John wants to sell me because I think we're making.
Gotta watch out for John. All right, so we've got that. This is going to be an interesting one. I don't think they've announced when kickoff is going to be. Will they announce that tomorrow? It is 3.
Yeah.
So here's the situation. This is going to be fun. My oldest has a camp or a scout camp out this weekend. So I will not be able to watch the game until Sunday. I don't know what to think about that. So everybody just be patient. If you're not seeing the number 5 Heart podcast in-game updates, sorry. I will do that as soon as I get home and get a shower on Sunday midday. Yeah. But
Nebraska did open as a 6.5-point favorite.
I did see that.
Yeah.
So none of us have us covering.
Nope.
I feel like that's going to slim down. I feel like that was a little bit generous, but it's at home. So I always say they gave you 3 points at home. That's traditional. So Pit Snipe Husker will buy you, Jake.
Yeah. Floor checked. Okay. I don't know how much I can help you with that, but
I think it's going back to the guns. I'm sorry, the muscles. I don't think you can see
on
YouTube anymore.
Yeah.
So Colin J says his bold prediction: Mizuka enters the game with 1 second left and kicks the game-winning field goal. Nebraska 3, Rutgers 2.
Mm-hmm.
We do have we try to usually get a bold prediction. Any bold predictions for this game, guys?
We'll have a defensive touchdown.
Okay, Jake.
Yeah, we're gonna make field goals.
That's sad but bold.
No, I'm not. That's not a joke.
No, I know.
That is my bold prediction.
But it's sad that field goals are the bold prediction.
And I think we're gonna make 2. So
I guess making 1.
yeah.
PATs all day, baby. I would say. Oh, John says I should enjoy the scout trip because they don't stay young for long. Thanks, Papa Bear. Get me all in my feels about getting older. I say that Micah Mazuka plays.
All right.
That could be a bold prediction. I mean, that could also be very easily snuffed out long before Saturday too. So, here we go. John, go to bed. No, he says, next thing you know, they're old and texting you horrible things while your first half against Purdue's a shit show and you want to sell them, but their mother won't let you. That must be Rotten Son. That's got to be Rotten Son. All right. Everybody, this is great. Make sure that you come back. I'll be back Thursday night for sure. And we'll get all of your score predictions then. John will be with you tomorrow night for Monday Night Therapy. Andy Ketterson's Husker Happy Hour Tuesday night. For whatever reason, I'm the only one who decides to go at 9 o'clock at night, but I appreciate that all about you because you allow me to make sure I have time with my family. Again, while they're young, make John happy, whatever. Thank you. Look, it's after 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday, and there are over 670 people hanging out with us right now. So I don't know what to say. That every time we crack these live streams and everybody comes out to join us, I'm touched. It's fantastic. What a great community we have built. We'll owe it all to John Dam Johnston, our founder, our fearless leader, who was throughout the chat here tonight. I'm so grateful for these two guys joining me. So for Every Game Jake and for Haas Reuter, I'm Greg Mahachko. This is Coronation's Overreaction. Go Big Red. Haas.
Win the damn game.
Jake.
Throw the bones.
Oh, nice.
Nice.